Hello, I'm Hyoga Kajitani. This time, I'll be explaining Hiki-Waza. The video is divided into two parts. The first half is Hiki-Waza including Hiki-men, Hiki-kote, Hiki-do. In the second half, I'll explain some variations of techniques from normal Hiki-men and Hiki-do, feint men, do and kote. I'll also explain some points to hit Hiki-Waza and some things I thought about when I was in junior high and high school. I hope you will watch this video to the end. Let's talk about some points of Hiki-Waza. First, I was trying not to hit while stepping back. If you try to hit while stepping back, there are many situations that da-tatsu would be light and it would be difficult to make ippon. So I think it is very important to not hit while stepping back. I know many people wonder how to accomplish that. For me, I kept repeating, step back after hitting to myself while practicing, including doing a feint for Hiki-do. The second point is about how to use your feet. I think there are two ways of using your feet, especially for Hiki-men. The first is to step back after stepping forward with the right foot as usual. If an opponent tries to stick with me, you may hit da-tatsu at the base of the shinai. So, you can create ma-ai while doing suba-zeri by stepping forward momentarily with the left foot, then stepping in and then stepping back. This is not easy to do. If you step forward with left foot first, some judges referees might think, why did the left foot go forward? The basic flow is to do ashi sabaki with your right foot in the front, and the left foot comes forward to create ma-ai with your opponent. Then, at the same time that you are stepping in after stepping back, the left and right feet switch. 1. Create ma-ai with your opponent by moving your feet. 2. Bring your left foot forward naturally. 3. Switch your right and left feet as soon as you step back. The thing to be mindful of when you are doing this is to not turn to the right by kicking with your left foot. Otherwise, the da-tatsu will look like it is coming from the side. This point should be noted. Next is the third point. The third point is about how to step back. The important thing about stepping back is to be quick on your first step. Hiki-Waza needs quick, sharp movements. So if the first step is slow, the opponent will take advantage of the situation. And it will be difficult for you to make ippon. It is so important to have leg strength for the first step as well as for the first step back after the strike, in order to instantly move away from the ma-ai with your opponent. If I talk about an extreme example, I think it is incredibly difficult to move back when your hips are forward. Even if you want to move back quickly, it is difficult to do so because the center of gravity is in front of you. To keep your center of gravity back, you should imagine yourself being pulled by a rope tied at your waist, almost like you are bowing as you are moving backwards. I think that will allow you to move backwards very quickly. The fourth point is about ma-ai. There is ma-ai for suba-zeri, just like there is for ma-e-waza. Of course, you will strike the base of the shinai if you are too close to the opponent. But you will be hit easily by your opponent if the distance is too far. Although you will be able to strike, the opponent will also be able to strike easily. It is the same with ma-e-waza. If the ma-ai is small, it would be difficult to hit. And if the ma-ai is big, you can't reach the opponent. In the case of suba-zeri, you can't reach the opponent if the ma-ai is too small, and there is a risk of being hit by the opponent if the ma-ai is too big. The way to create a good ma-ai is to find the point at which a strike is possible using a combination of arm and feet movements. These movements will help you create a ma-ai that is closer or further than it looks to the opponent, allowing you to control ma-ai. this point is about how to hit strike. I said earlier that you shouldn't let your body turn outward. And in particular, you should pay attention to Ha-suji. If you hit Da-tatsu from the side with your Ha-suji sideways, it means you hit Da-tatsu from the side of the sword. So you should really be careful about it. A feature of people who can strike along the Ha-suji is that their arms move out to the right, their body position opens up, and they strike using the range of motion of their wrists only. That's why I practice to be able to use the vertical movement, by tucking my right arm into my body. It makes your Da-tatsu strong because you're not using just your wrists, but the vertical trajectory. And then you can strike the opponent following a proper Ha-suji with standing Ha-suji firmly. What you have to be careful about is the center of gravity that I mentioned before. If you try to strike while stepping back, your center of gravity will go up and the strike will be light. So you should be conscious about to step back after hitting Da-tatsu. So those are 5 points that you should be careful of during Hiki-Waza. From now, I'd like to explain about Hiki-Waza. I will begin by explaining Hiki-men, Hiki-kote and Hiki-do. If you are conscious about 5 points I said before, you can understand all Hiki-Waza. If you create the proper ma-ai with your opponent, are conscious about not hitting while stepping back, and are aware of your Ha-suji, you will naturally be able to strike with Hiki-Waza and Hiki-men. I would like for you to be conscious about these little details, like not striking while moving back. The most important point of Hiki-men is the sound. If you hit men ga ne, it will not sound good and your strike will not be counted as ippon. So you should try to capture men buten. Let's watch it again in slow motion. You should hit Hiki-men like this. Hiki-kote and Hiki-do are very similar. It is really important to practice Hiki-Waza trying to make the opponent feel like they are in danger, by making them aware of Hiki-men and opening up the opponent's kote or do. At that time, you may do Suba Zerai. If you do Suba Zerai by imagining that you are on top of the opponent's Suba, you can take advantage of the vertical movement. You can strike Hiki-men after forcibly lowering the opponent's hands, or use the moment that they come back up to strike Hiki-kote or Hiki-do. Practice with these things in mind. I'll talk about Hiki-do. The most important point of Hiki-do is also the sound. Also, when the opponent raises his hand, if you aim at his left side do, that is, the right side do for yourself, you have a narrower area to strike here. That's why you should aim for a wider area, rather than aiming for the narrow part, to increase your accuracy of making a strike. When I aim, I like to think about aiming for the part of do where there is a gap between the armor and body because the middle part is often in contact with the stomach and the sound after striking tends to be muffled. Of course this side makes noise but it is easy to miss, so I aimed for this diagonal section imagining that I was cutting this part from above. It's kind of a tip. but a sharp movement is so important to turn Hiki-do to ippon. Normally, it would be a cutting movement, but the moment of contact for Hiki-do should be like when you do it for a kote strike. And try to make the strike an impactful one in that instant, using your Te-no-uchi. Without proper Te-no-uchi, the strike could appear to stay on do longer, and the strike won't appear as sharp. I think that this kind of Hiki-do with instantaneous power looks sharper than the kinds of Hiki-do I mentioned above. I think it might be fun to experiment with this sort of thing, so I would encourage you to try things out and see which is easier to make a hit. That is the end of my explanation. For the rest of the video, I want to show you Hiki-men, Hiki-kote, Hiki-do. 3 Hiki-men. Let's watch it again in slow motion. Hiki-kote. Let's watch it again in slow motion. Hiki-do. Let's watch it again in slow motion. How was this video? For the next video, I want to show you some variations of techniques from straight Waza, as well as Hiki-men right before separation. Thank you for watching the video to the end.